Hi everyone, super excited to be here and I hope you'll enjoy today's ride. So we're going to talk about RDP and unparalleled monitoring of it and the Tradecraft and the stuff that we've found through our systems. But first, I need to warn you, this is going to have Dungeon and Dragon puns and stuff like that. So we were expired, or we thought we could pull it off because of Stranger Things last year, who made that mainstream and accessible and approachable, but also because of the movie. So I added some nerdiness into that talk, but I'm telling you, there's no more pop culture references. We're going to dive deep into real Dungeon and Dragon lore. Who are we? I am Olivier Bilodeau, Cybersecurity Research Director at GoSecure. You can call me Oliver.
And I'm Andréanne Bergeron. I'm a cybersecurity researcher at GoSecure, and I have a PhD in criminology.
So today's quest is we're going to talk about RDP interception because we need to lay some groundwork so that you understand when we will look after the 5 attacker classes, how this information was collected, so you follow along, right? The information we collected represents 190 million events that we looked at and that we disseminated. We're going to talk about the arsenal that they use, so the tools, the weapons, if you want, that they use. And we're going to do some memorable sessions highlights. So we intercept RDP so we can look at the session, replay the sessions. So we're going to look at that. Here are today's characters, right? We have several characters. Some of them you might not see yet because they're well hidden in that frame. But so before we dive into those characters, let's get some context. So RDP is highly targeted, right? It's right after phishing for ransomware threats. However, it's badly studied, so it was ripe for research. There's no comprehensive honeypotting efforts when at the time that I started the PyRDP project, which I'm going to show you soon. So we decided to leverage it. And it's not attacked by malware. It's not attacked in an automated fashion. It's attacked by humans. So if we want to go after the humans, this is a really good spot to study the criminal hackers, the opportunistic attackers, to study them. So it's right for intelligence collection at the human level, right where it's painful for them, where they need to change their tactics. So this is why for us it's relevant research. So now let's leverage the capture depth. But before we do so, let's talk about RDP first. What is RDP? Well, on the left-hand side, you have the MSTSC client. So it's the client side, where you connect to systems. And on the right-hand side is what you get once you are authenticated on RDP. And so you have your mouse, your keyboard, the display. So it's really remote control software. But you guys all know that, but I just wanted to make sure that we understand what we're looking at. But how does one intercept RDP now? So what we did at GoSecure is we built a tool. It's been 4 years in development, several contributors. It actually started as a challenge to interns. I told them, you cannot achieve this in 4 months, and they did. So we've been building upon that tool since then. So it's a monster in the middle for RDP, which means interception, but there's also a tempering engine. So we can modify on-the-fly RDP. We can take control. We can steal the clipboard on the client side. So it does all that, and we're doing that to adversaries. So it's very, very cool to do that. We have a banner that warns them of the extent of the capabilities that we have to make it legal, obviously. But so the tooling comes also with a player. So we intercept RDP for the full duration of the sessions of the attackers. But then we are able to recheck those sessions in our player tool, slow it down, take some screenshots. So it's really a powerful means to monitor adversaries.
So let's take our crystal ball to go and see what our tool looks like, so the RDP player looks like. So this is our tool when we analyze the sessions, the recorded session. So when it will start, you'll see there the screen of the attacker, so everything that is going on the screen. And then you'll see his or her mouse movement all around with this yellow dot there. And at the bottom, we have everything that goes through the keyboard, as well as in the clipboard, so we steal everything. And at the beginning of the session, like here, we see the host and domain information, as well as the creds with which they connect. In this case, our creds. It's the first time they connect to our system. So here, first thing we see is that in the clipboard, it's our IP address already. So this is the last thing they copy-paste. And here we see them type, right? We see everything at the bottom. Here, they will change the creds of the session so they can have access. And even if we don't see in the screen the creds, we see it at the bottom. So this is very useful. An interesting thing here is that he pastes his C drive directly on our system, so we can collect all the file that it contains. And then he proceeds with his activities, which is crypto mining here. So it's basically like surveillance cameras for Windows system, right?
So in the context of today's research, this is how it was deployed. So we deployed a real Windows system in the cloud. So there's a lot of clouds because we did it in the cloud. And we firewalled it so that only the PyRDP system could reach it out. So we captured every RDP interactions with that system. This is like the result of running a setup like this, but several of them in parallel. For years, we collected the sessions, and then we looked at them. We've talked a lot about PyRDP before, but for those who hear it for the first time, here are a ton of references which are available in our slide deck, which is already on the Black Hat website, or should be on the Black Hat website. So if you're interested by doing the interception yourself, you can, and here you should go and access all of that material. Now, the data. What is the data? Welcome to the Dungeon Adventurers. We collected 190 million events, as I previously mentioned, including 20 million net NTLM v2 hashes. We tried to crack 3 million of them and already published research about that previously. But so this led to 2,500 successful logins that we analyzed. More than 478 files were transferred that we looked at. And we have 2,300 RDP captures that we individually watched and checked via all of that which we collected.
So some of those, some of those 2.3 thousand sessions are related, right? Because attacker can connect more than once to our system. So if we put in relation or group every session that are related, we get 95 different actors or group of actors. And the way that we can group them, it can be based on a couple of evidence. So the first one is that if they change the creds at first and then reuse those creds afterwards, well, we're sure that they are connected, right? Or if there's a continuity throughout the session, so they take it where they left it the last time, or if the connection are very close in time and using the same domain and host. So there's a lot of information that we can makes us allow us to group them. And otherwise, there's also so from those 2.3 thousand sessions, there's 455 sessions that actually connect, that we see them connect to our system. So they enter the cred and then enter. But they are not all interesting, right? Because sometimes they connect and disconnect right away or like do nothing. So from those, there's 339 interesting session that we analyze for this talk today. If we take a look very quickly at the indicator in the MITRE attack framework, this is what we get. Okay, so we have the resource hijacking mostly and system network configuration discovery. We have the active scanning, including scanning API block and word list scanning. So basically, for the big categories of the MITRE attack framework, we have the reconnaissance, discovery, and impact. This is what we see most. So now let's characterize the attackers, D&D style. Okay. This is our party that we presented already, so we'll go through each one of them because they all represent a profile, a different profile of behavior in the session. So let's go with the first one that you might not have seen until now. He's very stealthy there in the corner. So it's because it's the ranger. The ranger will explore all the folders of the system once he's in. It will run reconnaissance through program script or by clicking its way through, like opening a task manager to check the CPU performance and Googling the IP address and everything. So they check the network and host performance characteristics. They do not perform any other meaningful action after that. So we suspect that they might be evaluating the system for someone else to use it later. So here we have an example, a video of a ranger in action. So we'll see that once in our session, he pastes 2 binaries here. The 2 binaries, he will use them just to collect, they are readily available program to collect information about our system. And then he copies it, so we know it because we steal the clipboard. Then you run the second one, copies it too. And basically that's all he does. He just grabs those information and then leave. He makes sure that he erases all these traces behind and left and leave. The second character is the thief. The thief will monetize the RDP access in many different ways. Okay, so example, the tool they use are proxyware, monetized browser, those who participate in the pay-to-serve schemes. They use crypto miner, Android emulator to commit fraud. So a large array of different possibilities to monetize the RDP access. So we'll see here 2 examples of the thieves. So here, the first one will use Traf Monetizer, which is a residential proxy enabler. And basically, they use it, he's connecting to his account right now. They use it to pass third-party traffic through our system and then get paid for it. So you see at the bottom, you can see the amount of money that he's doing, which is not a lot, by the way. The second example of a thief is obviously the crypto mining tools. So he launched XMRig, which is a crypto miner. He connects to his wallet. So we have all those information. Choose to mine Bitcoin Gold. And he goes in. So at the bottom, we see the hash rate, the local hash rate and the effective hash rate. So even if he performs other activities on the system, we can see that it's rolling at the back. The last, not the last, but the third character is the barbarian. So you will not be surprised by the description of this one. They use a large array of tools to brute force their way into more computers. They compromise other systems by working with lists of IP addresses, username, passwords. And I'll show you an example right away. So here, they use the tool Mascan, and more particularly the Mascan GUI, which is like the interface that is easier for them to use than just the Mascan script. And here we see him choose everything, all the information before launching the attack. So he put the RDP port, 3389, and then we'll select a country to target. In this case, he'll choose Vietnam. And then he launches the attack, and it works for him. The fourth character is the wizard. And this is like probably the most dangerous one because it's the one with the most skill, the higher level of skills. So they use the RDP access as a portal to connect to other computers. So they secure their way they secure their identity, using a jump over compromised host. Okay. And I'll show you right away the example. Okay, so here they are on our RDP session and then connect to another one, and we'll see a second one. So you see that on our session, the wizard is fileless. They do not need to install any tool or script or anything. They use the tool that are already on the system, which is RDP. And here, what we see is that on the other session to which he connects, he launched NL Brute, which is a tool for brute forcing. So he can monitor what the action that he's doing on the other session. Here we see that he's using a ghost user, and we will talk about this. It's related to a tool that he used to do that, and we'll come back to it later. So it makes it far more difficult to detect, especially if an organization is leveraging traditional security tools that search for known malware, script, or files. They can stay there forever, basically, before being flagged, and they leave no artifact behind. And the last one, because they are not all good, it's the Bard. Okay, the Bard in Dungeons & Dragons it's like, I don't want to start a debate here, but it's like the kind of annoying team player or small contributors. So same for here is the individual in this category have no apparent hacking skills. So they access the system to accomplish very basic tasks like Google search or watch porn. And we suspect, like, all the evidence points toward the fact that they might have bought the RDP access from someone else, since they do not seem to know how it works. So maybe from the ranger that we saw first, or another initial access broker. So just for the laugh, the Bard in action. Okay. So here, he is doing a basic research on Google about the strongest virus ever. Maybe you can find it. He looks at one site in particular. He will open the page. Here I translated what's going on, but basically it's like just information about virus, the most destructive virus. And then it goes back and search for virus script, because he might be able to launch it from himself. So he look at it, but abandon really fast to go watch porn. So he goes, he does a couple of research, porn.com, sex.com, sex.org. He's trying a lot of things. And then we can see the beginner level of consumer of porn when he's trying to find porn on YouTube. So porn, sex, and then he types Pornhub. He knows about it, but like he's looking at it on YouTube. So he's so close, so close. So why porn? We ask ourselves, why do they use our RDP access to watch porn? It makes no sense. But then we look at the evidence, and there's some country in which there's internet censorship, and this censorship includes ban on pornography. And when we look at the IP addresses that was used to connect to our system, it makes sense with this hypothesis. So in those countries, the VPN are also blocked most of the time, so they have to go around this censorship and use RDP access. So the number of each profile present in our data set is illustrated here. So you see that there's a lot of rangers, barbarian, and then we get a little less thieves, bard, and wizard. But also, all those classes are not mutually exclusive, right? They can intertwine in their activities sometimes. So a ranger might also try use tool for brute forcing, so performing action of a barbarian, and etc. So what about their weapons, Olivier?
Yeah, so let's dive into the attacker's weaponry in the form of little character sheets or little weapon sheets. So this is an RDP tool, specific RDP tool called XDIDZIC RDP patch. It's used by rangers, and it is well detected. You can see on the character sheet, I added the virus total ratio. So it is used as a persistent mechanism. By default, it's pre-filled to create the ghost user account that we've seen used by wizards before. So it's kind of a GUI that will create an account, and if you click on the patch RDP feature, This allows a non-server Windows, so Windows desktop family of operating systems, to have concurrent RDP sessions. So this is disabled by Microsoft usually, but the possibility is there. And so some guys did a tool that allows to activate that concurrent session for RDP. So we really see this as a quick persistence mechanism for the bad guys to use, and user-friendly on top of it, creates the user patch RDP. It survives patching, so even if Microsoft patches something around RDP, this is done at a different layer using a different binary. So it's kind of very resilient or robust. The XDIDZIC group was taken down. So the group was well known and has been taken down, I think, 5 years ago, something like that. But the tool, files or information being what it is, it's still out there and it's still actively used. Next up, we're going to talk about NLBrute. So NLBrute is the tool that they use to brute force RDP. And I know from experience that a lot of the tools are unreliable to brute force RDP, but this stuff is solid. It is protected, so you need a license, but there are cracked versions online that I would never run on my own machine. But it's interesting to see that it's really a black hat focused tool that is more effective than what the open source world has to offer, or what the pen test world has to offer, if you want. It's relatively well detected by tools, but some of the samples, because I have several samples for this one, some of the samples are undetected by CrowdStrike, ESET, F-Secure, Kaspersky. So some of them are really good at avoiding detection. The author of NLBrute, he was charging, I think, $500 US for a license. He was arrested and extradited to the US this year in February. So the tool will probably not see updates for a little while. Yeah. Didn't realize it was a joke, but it's funny. Next up is the Mascan GUI. So this tool that we saw in the previous capture used by barbarians is a wrapper around Robert Graham Mascan. And Mascan is a very effective command line internet scanner. So it's a well-known GUI, and there is an advanced mode variant out there as well, so various detection ratio. But it has like the turnkey feature like country targeting. So it has its database of IP ranges associated with a country. So it makes it really easy for people who don't really know what they're doing to say, I want to target this or that. And we've seen in the Tradecraft that they use often is when they are on AWS, they scan other AWS IP ranges, but they also scan specific countries and organizations in the hope that someone whitelisted AWS from their firewalls or perimeter. So there is a kind of a pivoting angle to how they use Mascan, which is very interesting. Not something I anticipated. Next up is Silverbullet. Silverbullet is a special one because it's a clear black hat tool that tries to disguise as a pen testing tool. It's a proxy-first web testing. So if you think about Burp, Burp has, you need to proxy in order to use Burp on one, configure your browser to proxy, right? And, but by proxy first for Silverbullet, what I mean is that you send it hundreds of proxies, and it will spider through those proxy addresses all of the requests for the target. So it's really meant to avoid a cloud, not cloud, but like Cloudflare interference, Akamai interference, anything that blacklists IP addresses. It's really meant to work around that. So there's clearly little legitimate use. However, it is distributed on GitHub. Like it has, a README, and it talks about what it does. So here from their website, it says you can use it to scrape, parse, automated pen testing, unit testing. So they really try to look legit. But if you can look at the screenshot, like one tab is proxies. So proxies are really meant to a first-class citizen in there. The other surprising thing is word lists. So basically, this is a credential stuffing machinery or weaponry, right? You use word lists of usernames and password. you spread them through hundreds of proxies that you've scraped or that you buy. And you use configs. So the configs are shared on Telegram in some specific channels. It's to brute force PayPal, to brute force Spotify, to brute force Netflix or other Asian similar streaming platforms. So it talks about CAPTCHAs, talks about OCR, so character recognition, talks about CF, which I assume is Cloudflare, so Cloudflare bypass in the configs. So it's a really, black hat related tool, but no, because on their website they say you cannot use it for illegal purposes. But remember before, they were saying it's a tool for web pen testing, but in the disclaimer, they just go straight to the point. You cannot use it for credential stuffing, right? So they kind of forgot, oh, we need to lie about what it's about, what this tool is about. But so, thankfully, you cannot use it for legal purposes. So we still have a good case, a good heartwarming case of this banner will stop cybercrime. Thank you, Silver Bullet, for doing that. So next up, we have a defender bypass technique. So I have two defender things that I'm going to talk about. The first one is used by Rangers, and it is called Windows Defender Remove Script. It's a script, and then it leverages a legitimate software called Install Wim Tweaks. So it has a 0 detection ratio on VirusTotal. And what it does is that it unhides Microsoft OS packages, so the Wim packaging format of Microsoft. When you customize Microsoft's product, like if you would do a POS or if you would do an ATM, you would work with the OS at that level. So it unhides the protected packages, it removes the Defender packages, and then it re-enables the whole thing so that Windows will not complain. It requires admin to work. We saw it work on Windows Server 2016. However, it doesn't work anymore on Windows 11. So there's something, even if you disable tamper protection, it will not work on Windows 11. So it's like it will eventually become ineffective for the bad guys, but for server operating system, it still works. Next up is called Decontrol. This is distributed on the internet, like it tries to look like legitimate software. This tool is used by thieves and rangers. We know for a fact that it is used by the Lucky's ransomware group, and we have a couple of hashes, I think. But so it disables Defender and unload the driver, so you don't need a reboot for it to be effective, as opposed to the previous tool. It's well documented by a blog post by the DFIR report. So anyone wanted to protect or detect this, I would advise you to consult the blog post. Next up, and the last tool I'm going to dive into, is a phishing kit tool. So it's called Gamadine Mailer, so a user-friendly interface to mount phishing attacks, spear phishing, but also spam. So you could load templates and tons of emails. And we saw them, click on it and try to test SMTP servers and stuff like that. It is somewhat detected, but it's not detected right now by CrowdStrike, ESET, F-Secure, Kaspersky, and Microsoft. So right now, people deploying this, it would go silent. We have more tools that we saw, a lot more of them, and our goal is to document them via blog post and provide hashes and Sigma rules in the next upcoming months. So if you guys are interested in understanding more the hacking tools and the Defender bypass tools, I would advise you to follow our blog.
So if we take this list, this list of tools and the tools that we just presented and try to classify them by objectives, this is what we get. So there's a lot of scanning and attack tools, and then there's enabler tools, monetizing, download, communication. Communication here, we're talking mostly about Telegram. So they use Telegram first to communicate with, when there are more than one person involved, and they also send files through Telegram. We see that a lot. So now let's get back to our crystal ball, just to show some interesting observation that we saw during the research. The first one is that attackers might work in team. Okay, they are not like standalone actors. So here we see the person is like downloading NLBrute, and we see in the clipboard, I'll make it bigger and translate it, but we see that he's communicating with someone else and saying, why did you delete all the applications with a broken heart? So he has to download again all the tool because someone else used the session and then like download it, erase it, and then he has to go over it. You have to do it again. So yeah, they might be more than one involved in the attacks. The second observation is that some attackers do not speak English, okay? And that's pretty funny sometimes. Here, the attacker is playing around with some credit cards, stolen credit cards in Google Ad, but then a pending approval message appears and he has no clue what's going on. So he has to copy it, goes to Google Translate, and then go choose his language in which he wants to translate it. So really, you cannot beat this level of attribution. We know for sure the language he speaks. So, and talking about the language they speak, there's a couple of sessions that we saw that the person was not speaking English, or maybe they speak English, but they speak another language. And if we analyze the alphabet in the session that we are sure about the alphabet they use in everyday life, this is what we get. So it's based on only 45 sessions among all the sessions we analyzed. And what we see is that the first language they use when it's not English, it's Arabic, and then Farsi or Persian, Cyrillic, Vietnamese, and Chinese. And the last video that I wanted to show you is how great our tool is for Intel. So we saw today a lot of Intel that we can connect when they connect to their account. So here's another example. They connect to their Telegram account. They choose, like, well, they put their phone number. Of course, it could be a burner phone, but in this case, the IP address was coming from Algeria. So we can attribute with other evidences. We see them enter their passwords. I didn't show it here, but of course we grab everything that goes through the keyboard. And then we see all the chat room in which he's involved, in which there's illegal activities going on. So for starting an investigation, for example, this is a lot of information that are very useful and great for Intel.
Now, we are close to the end of today's game, and it's time for experience points and loot, right? The treasures. So first, we wanted to talk a little bit about the infrastructure that we use so that people could reproduce it in their own environments. So we have the little diagram I showed earlier, but it's kind of a larger set here. But so we have individual kits of honeypots, and when shit hit the fan, if you allow me the expression, you need to destroy the whole instance. So if you destroy instances, you destroy the logs. So to avoid losing logs, we stream the logs to a message queue so that we don't lose anything if we need to, we get an abuse notification, some machine is hacking Sony and they're mad, so we like destroy the instance right away. We say we are doing research. Usually it goes well. And so we can go quick in this that way because of the message queue. So the message queue, then we pump it from the message queue into Elastic and then analyze this from Jupyter notebooks, but also RStudio and good and faithful Excel. And all of this is deployed using Docker containers, orchestrated by Terraform. And we destroy and recreate instances from time to time automatically using GitLab CI/CD. So a lot of this is open source, right? So it can be a very affordable setup, especially if you do it on-prem. So we advise you to take a stab at it. Now, what have we seen or learned today about our party? Well, the Ranger, who are the largest group, they identify systems and they open the path to others. So they're ones to watch, right? And ones to deceive if we want to take this further. The bards of questionable technical skills and appetite are a bit, interesting to watch, but it's more anecdotal. The thieves, I think, represent or crystallizes what cybercrime is about. It's opportunity and it's maximizing the resources that are available, but they're not like they are really opportunistic in the sense that they will run anything. They're not necessarily after you. They're just after making money, right? And this is something I think a lot of defenders don't realize. The wizards are the scariest group because they do living of the land. You have nothing to search for them besides other RDP connections out. And because of this, they are harder to find because they jump through hosts, right? It's more difficult. The barbarians are an aggressive group, brute forcing their way into more systems. And I want to highlight their pivoting capability, or the fact that they use compromised system to scan other systems right away in order to pivot, to hope that some whitelists, broad whitelists of Amazon will allow them to get somewhere they couldn't get from another system. So really aggressive about that. Now, some takeaways that I want you to have. Like the research community, I want you to understand that RDP is ripe for attacker study. Take our open source stuff, do it on your own. You'll find even cooler stuff if you increase the deception level. So you should be like energized by that. It attracts humans, not bots or script. This is so refreshing compared to running an SSH or Telnet honeypot. So different. For the blue team, we want you to consume the IOCs that are going to be released. They're already on GitHub, on our malware IOC repository. So go and grab them and hunt in your environments. But we also advise you to roll your own traps. And you can roll traps externally. It might be a lot of work and a lot of noise, but you can do so internally into like low cost, high value, and low false positive type systems, right? And you have a recording. If you do a RDP honeypot without PyRDP, you just say, oh, these credentials were used, it's coming from you. You have like little proof or something that managers will not necessarily understand. But if you have PyRDP, you see motive. What was the person trying to achieve? This is more than sysmon logs, for example. For law enforcement, our advice is we want law enforcement and certs and anyone on the good side trying to protect the internet to lawfully intercept RDP when they are allowed. And one of the reasons why is, imagine this RDP system is used by a bad team, right? If you look only at the metadata without RDP interception, what you'll see is like, oh, it's doing SMTP out to this IP, which is Office 365 or Google. And they have RDP in coming from this IP, but it's actually a jump host, so we don't really know who's behind that. You have little intelligence. If you get a hold on that disk and deploy PyRDP in transparent way, you will see who they are phishing. So you will have victims, you will have targets, you'll have a lot more intelligence. So this is really an important takeaway for me, because I think if attackers are fearful of getting caught in a super high, visible way, like with videos and with their logins to their systems and at their infrastructure, they will start being more careful, which will slow them down. And we all win if they are less assholes like they are right now, right? Sorry again for the bad words. But it's raise the cost to attack is the proper way to phrase it, I guess. So just one more thing before we leave you. PyRDP is open source. I made that clear. But now we released also our FQ RDP capture. So FQ is a binary parser which you can provide plugins that will interpret binaries. It's like the GQ of binaries. And we created a parser that will allow you to look at the RDP capture so you could do more analysis at scale. For example, not a lot of people know, but there is time zone information in RDP. So if you run honeypots for a long time, you extract the time zone, you correlate that data with the time of attack, you have a better attribution of where someone is probably in, right? Is he using a proxy or not? You correlate all that information and you can go at it. So it allows you to do an analysis at scale, basically, and this is also on our GitHub. Pushed the code yesterday in panic, preparing for the talk. And with that, thank you so much. See you at the tavern, which is the wrap-up room, because we don't have time for questions, unfortunately.